All right,
This
then.
meeting is now being recorded.
Terrific. So just a reminder to everyone that that's the case. And please, if you're not speaking, please keep your phone muted to keep down the background noise, which you can do by pressing the mute button or the mute button if you're on a cell phone, or *6 if you're on some other kind of phone.
Joining the meeting.
Paula Macri.
Welcome back, Paula. So I will call the meeting to order, and at
Joining the meeting.
6:37.
Kathy Lamb.
Welcome, Kathy.
Thank you.
At 6:37 p.m. And I'll ask the councilors if there is any pecuniary interest to disclose. Hearing none, let the record show that there was none declared. And now I would ask for a motion to approve the agenda as circulated with the following additional correspondence. There is another letter regarding the Black Lake camping situation from Tara McGowan under correspondence item A, and there is an email from Rebecca Green regarding the use of the Trillium grant for the Recreation Committee dated, that email was just dated yesterday, and I guess, well, it's under correspondence, but we'll probably include it in our discussion on possible funding opportunities. So anyway, could I get a motion to accept the agenda with those additions, please?
I'll make the motion, Councillor Lamb.
Thank you, Councillor Lamb, seconded by?
I'll second it.
Councillor Gorman Matthews, thank you. Any discussion about the agenda? All right, then I will, if I hear no objection, I will assume that the agenda is approved by the meeting. We do have this evening a presentation, and I will ask the clerk, our presenters are on the line, I assume, is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Donald Sanderson is here, Jim Hanna, Katie Hogue, and a number of other folks that are linked to the Westbury Sound Health Center.
Okay, well, welcome, Donald and Katie and Jim, and we appreciate your taking the time to come and give us an update, and so please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mayor Comrie and Council. We very much appreciate the opportunity to make a deputation before you this evening. As indicated, joining me is Deborah Randerwood. She is our Chief Nursing Officer, as well as Jim Hanna, who wears a number of hats, but in terms of communications, facilitator, as well as our Strategic Partnerships and Innovation Officer. And Katie Hogue is our Director of Primary Care. Katie is a nurse practitioner and has also been seconded to our COVID-19 pandemic response. We're also very pleased to be joined by Vice Chair of the West Prairie Sound Health Center Board of Directors, Marcella Scholdice. Marcella also sits on the Community Advisory Committee for the Whitestone and Area Nursing Station. And so that's the member of our leadership team, and we are also very, very pleased to be represented by our nurse practitioner as well, who is very well known to everyone. And we wanted to, it's been a number of months now since we've discussed the burgeoning needs for space at the Whitestone and Area Nursing Station. I think Teresa and with her leadership and the group have begun to articulate that, and Katie as well. And I was feeling we've been, our number one priority has been responding to COVID-19 and keeping our community safe. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a few moments. But I was reflecting on that and how that it's taken us away from some of the other things, some of the other important work that needs to be done in all of our communities, not the least of which is planning for the future of our nursing station in Whitestone. On the other hand, what Katie and Deborah have and Teresa have reminded me is that the way that we provide care has changed significantly in ways that certainly I could not have anticipated several months ago, prior to March, when we began to respond to the COVID-19. And it's also quite likely that, well, this is going to continue for months, if not years, if not forever. So if we were to have proceeded with planning on the same parameters that we were anticipating back then we, I think, would have some major challenges that we would have to revisit, and some probably a number of change orders and increased costs. So, at the risk of sounding defensive, we haven't proceeded significantly in terms of the planning process with new COVID requirements in mind. But that's not necessarily, at least from our perspective, a negative thing. I'm going to, in a few minutes, with your permission, ask Deborah and Katie to talk a little bit about how the way we provide care is changing in the health center and in our nursing stations, and Teresa as well, and just though talk a little bit about the impact that pandemic responses has had on everyone at the health center, because everyone in our organization, whether we're in stores and shipping and receiving and maintenance and housekeeping, dietary, certainly to clinical staff and our physicians and leadership, have been redeployed in ways that were, as I said, unimaginable, to make sure that we are protecting the public. The way people enter the health center and their nursing stations has changed. The use of personal protective equipment, the use of space has been dramatic. We're experiencing that it's taking us almost twice as much space to provide about two-thirds of the amount of care that we would have before. We're still not up to 100% of our pre-COVID-19 activity, and we're working really hard to address that. But there's a number of reasons why we haven't been able to do that, nor has anyone else in the province. And then on top of that, tremendous financial pressure that's placing on health centers and municipalities, no doubt, in addition to the significant reduction in revenues, not just Ministry of Health and revenues to run the hospital, but the roughly 35 to 38% of ancillary revenue that we rely on to keep the health center going has been decimated. That's everything from parking to cafeteria sales to renting to some of our community partners. So everything in our world, I suspect as well as yours, has been turned on its head, and we're learning how to cope with that. But what has not changed is our resolve to protect the community, and we're really proud of the work of our team, working with people from EMS and community paramedicine and all of our community partners to protect the community, and our nurse practitioner-led clinics are a backbone of that, and also have figure prominently in the development of our vision for an Ontario health team. And if we have time, we may be able to speak about that as well. But I'm going to speak a little less right now and ask Deborah and Teresa and Katie to share with us a little bit about how we're caring for patients and clients and families in this our current COVID reality.
Thank you, Donald. It's Deborah Randall-Wood, Chief Nursing Officer. I'll speak very briefly, and then I'll pass it over to Katie to speak generally, and then Teresa perhaps to give some examples of how things have changed at the Whitestone and area in PLC. I think the only thing I have to add to what Donald has said is that our world going forward will be forever changed. When this first started, we were looking at ways of essentially sort of holding our breath and hoping it would go away fairly quickly. We realized that wasn't going to happen, and that we have to
Mr. Mayor, I wonder if you could get someone to mute their phone someone's got a lot of background noise, and I'm trying to listen carefully. So,
Yes, sorry to interrupt, but could I do that? If you are not speaking, would you mind just muting your phone, please?
There we go. Thank you. That sounds better.
Thanks.
So we're having to find a way of doing things very differently than what we had done before. Well, a big part of that for the health center is our support of our long-term care homes and retirement homes in Parry Sound. All roads do lead to the health center when it comes to health, and we need to be prepared to take our role seriously in that. One of the big elements that has occurred to us and is becoming more and more real is that it will never go back to the way it was before. We're never going to be able to have large number of people in our waiting room. We're never going to be able to run ambulatory care clinics that have 30, 40, 50, or 60 people. We're never going to be able to run multiple systems. We're never going to be able to do our surgeries the way we had before. So we're very carefully trying to craft what this new COVID-informed future looks like. In terms of clinical practice, it's probably the way we always should have been doing it. We're going to be healthier. We're going to be more successful. We're just very much working hard to figure out what that looks like. And it affects everything from how we serve food to how we welcome people in to how we provide every single clinical intervention you can imagine. So that's what we're doing. The reason we're doing it is because contrary to what you might have heard or thought, we do have COVID in our community. It's reported in an interesting way by public health, and I'll let Katie speak about that. But so far we have been successful in keeping COVID in a controlled way, the way we need to. It's impossible to imagine that we won't have it, but we're strongly driven to protect the hospital and our most vulnerable in long-term care, in retirement homes, as well as those in our community. So Katie, perhaps you can speak just around generally what that looks like for us and perhaps why people ought to be aware that we do have COVID in our community.
Absolutely. Thank you, Deborah. And both yourself and Donald have done such a great job at really talking about the extra processes. And just in terms of the community partners, that really is a big part of our work and the new work. We've always had incredible community partnerships with our as you mentioned, community paramedics and our health service network. But it's been really wonderful to actually see how that's even gone broader, including our school boards and providing support. In terms of our local community COVID burden, we have seen positive COVID cases, and we've seen it since March and all the way through until recently. Public health reports at our local public health on the report. However, if we do have somebody whose postal code is not from the area, they won't report it. And so it's really important for us to recognize that we still need to act and be incredibly vigilant, as though anybody who you are around could potentially be carrying COVID-19. And so it's with that premise and that value that all of our processes continue to be changed, and as Deborah had mentioned, for the long haul. So our pre-screening as people come in, and when we're looking at primary care, just in general, even something that seems so simple as booking an appointment with your primary care provider, you must be screened and make sure that you don't have symptoms of COVID-19, and if you do, it may mean that you need a test. So whenever we're looking at planning and looking at what our new normal is, that really is the reality of our new normal. We've completed a total of 4,300 tests at the COVID Assessment Center, and although the numbers in our local area aren't high in terms of those test positivity, we know it's here, and it will continue to be here as people move around and go to other areas that might be higher in terms of the COVID cases. So I think I'll pass it over to Teresa just to explain a bit about the NPLC and how the COVID processes has changed her practice and how people access care from the NPLC in Whitestone.
Thanks, Katie. This is Teresa Wetzlar. I'm a nurse practitioner at the nurse NPLC at Whitestone. Our practices certainly have changed a lot in the last, since March. I'm just coming back on board after an illness. So we are still seeing people. We're doing a lot of patient navigation, a lot more patient navigation than we ever did before. So people are seen in the appropriate time and place. We're seeing, again, connection with the community. Our school bus drivers need their physicals done every year. We're doing those safely. We're making sure the teachers are healthy, doing their screenings, making sure the kids are healthy. Do they have questions? We're a lot of phone conversations. We are seeing a lot of people in person, and we are seeing a lot of people all over the phone. This adds a lot of added dimension because we can't have two people in the waiting room at the same time. And we have up to four providers at the same time running clinics. So our AAs, our receptionists are constantly trying to organize visits to decrease contacts. So there's only one person in our waiting room at a time. I think that's it. Marcella, do you have anything else to add?
No, I think the four of you have covered it very well. Just from the community perspective, we've got very many members of our committee listening in tonight because we are really keen to see the expansion go ahead. And as we're hearing tonight, that might not be quite what we were talking about before, but there's no question with COVID and with the future plans for the clinic that we do really need more space. That's all I wanted to say.
Absolutely.
If I could just on that, sorry, it's Donald. If I could just a few brief words about the evolving Ontario Health Team environment. So that initiative of the Ontario government began well before, at least several months before the advent of COVID-19. However, in spite of that, it's still, we believe that it represents an exciting opportunity for everyone in West Parry Sound, but in particular the communities that host nurse practitioner-led clinics. We can envision, even in this new COVID-19 environment, kind of a model of care where we can do everything possible to provide care closer to clients, patients, and families, and potentially use a nurse practitioner-led clinic as a center to work with other community resources, maybe space in a library or in a community center as well. We don't have to have everything at the nursing center, but to work with nurse practitioners as well as registered nurses, social workers, physiotherapy, and addiction and mental health workers. We've been very successful in expanding the scope of services that we're providing, and the team, Teresa and Katie and Deborah and group are working really hard in terms of trying to expand those resources even beyond that. So there's a potential really to make the Whitestone and area nurse practitioner-led clinic even more vibrant. And when that happens, I believe that the community of Whitestone becomes more vibrant and an attractive place for people to stay, to age in place, as well as to come and raise their families. So I'll leave that with people to think about as well. Thank you.
So hi, it's Deborah. I just wanted to add a comment about one of the examples of practical changes from what may have been our previous plans around an expansion to what needs to be future plans. And because we joke at the health center a little bit, that is all COVID all the time. It's really the only thing that we're talking about, living it and breathing it every moment. And we can see the future a little bit. And part of that future is that we're never going to be doing things like having the kind of large group meetings that we used to have. And we're going to have to find ways of doing that differently. One of the things that happens at Whitestone right now, for example, is you have to wait in your vehicle to be called in or waved in. And when you're going in to see Teresa or one of our colleagues, you need to be screened at the window before you go in, and there's no awning over that area where you have to stand, which is okay in mild weather, but of course not when the weather gets rainy or snowy or cold. When we were talking about the previous plans around the expansion, I never even imagined something like a carport would be a good idea, to be able to give people some place to park under, or a way of meeting in an area that wasn't the NPLC, so that we would have enough space. So everything that we've looked at before needs to be looked at through an entirely different lens, one of collaboration and engagement, so that we can do things smarter together, and the other through what do we need to do to keep people safe.
Okay, well, thank you for your presentation. What I would like to do is to open the floor up to questions from the councillors and perhaps others who are on the call. Before I do that, I might just provide an update for the benefit of our guests who perhaps are wondering if anything has been done since the meeting that we had back in, I guess it was February or anyway. I've been kind of losing track of time with all that's going on, as I'm sure everybody else has. But anyway, just to inform you what has taken place, we initiated an activity to take a look at the property that the municipality has in that downtown core of Dunchurch to see what space there is that is available for expansion. And there are, we do, as you might imagine, we have some similar situations in our own municipal office where we're short of space, and so we're also looking for options for how we can create some additional space in that office. It's been difficult for us with COVID-19 protocols to continue to have staff working there and keep everybody properly protected and so on. And so going forward, and by the way, our office is in general still closed to the public, but so we've experienced some of these, I'm sure nothing like the hospital, but anyway, some of those kinds of pressures. And anyway, we have got the information collected about the space that we have available and are now in a position to take a look at, this is just very recently, now in a position to take a look at where and how we might expand. And one of the questions that I'm sure is going to come up is, well, where are we in terms of understanding what the space requirement might be for the nursing station, and I'd be interested to know what our guests would propose as the appropriate mechanism for firming up the functional requirements for a possible additional space there. So anyway, I want to turn it over to other councillors to ask questions about what's been presented already, and appreciate your if you can stay and answer some of those for a bit. So go ahead. Questions from the floor. Or comments.
Mr. Mayor, Councilor McEwen.
Go ahead, Councilor McEwen.
Yeah, welcome to the Westbury Sun Health Center staff this evening. Seems like an eternity since we were able to have your folks come and address us in some ways, and other ways it doesn't seem very long. been quite a mix of activities in the last 6 or 8 months. The need for the additional space, which would be accommodated by the municipality, and if I'm reading between the lines and hearing things correctly, the support is pretty much totally there from the West Prairie Zone Health Center, and in line, I guess, with the Ontario Health team approach to expanding the health unit or Whitestone Nursing Station. Could I have a positive comment on the support for it totally?
So, Councillor, it's Donald Sanderson. So I would, for sure, in principle, working together with you to identify what's the, what would be the appropriate amount of space to deliver those services safely, and I think hopefully as well to plan for the future. We, of course, our ability to deliver services like municipalities as well is predicated on the availability of resources. So we advocate for resources, and we don't have permission to expand programs and services at this time. But if you don't build the space, envision it, then it's unlikely that we would be able to do that. And we have a very positive track record with Teresa and Katie and their team. They use data to demonstrate the needs and the benefits of providing enhanced services at a community level, and I'm very confident that can be will continue to happen. But I don't have a funding letter that comes in hand with that. But what I do have is a commitment on behalf of the health center and our administrative team to work collaboratively with you and the staff in Whitestone to plan for a bright future.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Sanderson. The sketches and the information, we have never had formal drawings, blueprints prepared for an expansion. I think we're now hopefully in a position to work with you folks and maybe get a designer or some professional person to collect and put it all together for us. So I'm hearing that you'd be willing to provide that data for us and have someone work with us on the detail of putting together the design.
Absolutely, the answer is yes, and the only condition on that is again, as long as it doesn't impact our ability to to our priority around COVID response. But I can assure you we're used to, we will be looking for ways to say yes and for ways to make it happen. And if that means being actively engaged with you in pursuing funding opportunities and granting opportunities, then that's something that Jim and our team will work with kind of behind the scenes to make sure that the clinical people can continue to do their important work, and we'll work behind the scenes we'll need to discuss with them to find out from them what services are envisioned and how much space and equipment we are required to do it safely. But in terms of the legwork we have, we'll need to work with you to understand what the requirements are and what the timelines are associated with that. But we'll do our very best to make that happen.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Other questions or comments?
Yeah, Councillor Lamb.
Go ahead, Councillor Lamb.
Yeah, thank you for coming and presenting this to us. I guess, first of all, I want to say I'm very supportive of the nurses station. So, so we need to find a way to together go ahead with something. But I guess what comes to mind is that we need to put, from my standpoint, a lot more meat on the bone. We're talking very, very much in terms of generalities from my standpoint at this point. And, I don't know exactly what the ask is. I don't know, the timing of the ask, what we're looking at. I don't, we in Whitestone just are going through a $600,000 or plus $1,000 renovation to our library, and we did that through through a Trillium grant and a FedNor grant, and we fundraised $100,000 in our community for the library. So, again, what comes to my mind is rather than just say, well, we need whatever it is, 200,000 for you to expand. What efforts are going to be made in terms of some sort of joint, I don't know what monies are available to hospitals in terms of grants or monies in terms of this sort of expansion. Again, I don't know from a fundraising standpoint. Obviously, the community is a generous one in the sense of what we just did at the library. It also comes to my mind that we're not just the Whitestone nursing station. I heard tonight, and it's true, it's the Whitestone and area nurses station. So again, what comes to my mind is what if any are Magnetawan and McKellar, where we have, I'm sure, lots of patients come in that use the nurses station. What are they prepared to pony up in terms of an expansion or monies towards this sort of thing? So there's a number of things that I guess come to my mind, and then if I thought more, I could come up with more questions. But I just don't, from my standpoint anyway, as a counselor, I don't want to give the impression of just tell us what it is, and we'll tack it somehow on our tax bill on the way we go, because I'm sure, as you can understand, we're under the same sorts of pressures as the healthcare system is, in terms of running the municipality and setting our priorities. But I can tell you that the nurses station, in my mind, is a priority in terms of our community. So we've got to find a way jointly to work together towards this. I always have to put the plug in to Donald. All I ever hear in terms of any criticism of the nurses station is, of course, the lack of hours, particularly through the summer months, where our population, explodes from 1,000 to 6,000 or something, right? And I know you're going to tell me if I'm willing to pay for it, you can arrange it. But anyway, I'll have to put that plug in. But that's a kind of a side issue. So those are generally my thoughts on there's a lot of stuff I need to know that needs to be needs to be filled in order to make proper decisions. So thank you very much.
Thank you for your candor, Councillor Lamb. Everything that you said, I wouldn't disagree with you, and we just commit to working collaboratively with you to get the answer to those questions. You're absolutely correct that we operate in the same. We are responsible to to our citizens and to the government, and we don't do things without having a solid business plan or having a source of revenue to, whether it's and approvals to build and to build according to code and approval, and then as well for operating funding. So it's all related, and we're used. Those are the parameters we work within every day. So we're on the same page there.
Okay, thank you. Other questions or comments?
Sure, I'll comment, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Gore Matthews.
Beth, thank you.
Yeah, I just want to say that, I'm completely supportive of the nursing station and the expansion. I own a dental office, so I can completely sympathize the way that healthcare has been turned upside down right now. Right, looking at our nursing station right now, a lot of the renovations that we're going to need to take place are just operational ones that aren't even part of an expansion, but just changes that are going to need to be required to change our daily way of doing things and going about our business of providing care. So I'm kind of excited and just holding back and waiting to see what comes from the report in terms of how much space we have to use that's available to us, and what kinds of ideas and changes we'll need to make in order to incorporate other practitioners and other practices into the nursing station. I think it's all valued and needed in the community. So I'm excited to see kind of the next step. I know we're kind of in limbo right now, but I think we're getting past that in terms of getting some concrete information about what's available in terms of space and what our options are in bringing other specialties into the community. So, yeah, I'm excited to see what's coming forward.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. That's an important perspective as well. Those of us who have been to see our dentist recently or other healthcare providers just understand that this isn't just nurse practitioners or family practice. This is around how services are provided, how healthcare services are provided to everyone. So, thank you.
Other comments or questions? Anyone else who is on the call, if you wish to, I know we're not really in committee of the whole, but if you have a question that you wish to ask, we can entertain it while our guests are here. Well, perhaps I can, since I'm not hearing anything, perhaps I can just come back to my to the comment I made earlier. Normally speaking, in the way that I'm used to moving forward with this sort of thing is to establish a group of people who would provide input to what I'm used to calling a functional program, a facilities plan, if you will, but something that defines, in this particular case, what kinds of services we would want to offer, and of course they have to be described, quantitatively as well, if we're trying to increase certain kinds of services, offer new ones, etc., and what the space requirements would be for those services, so that you get you get the sort of demand side of the business case that Donald referred to earlier, and I'm interested if our guests have any suggestion as to how that should take place. Should we use the local nursing station committee as the focal point for that, or should we strike a task force or committee with representatives from West Parry Sound Health Center and municipality, or just how would you suggest we move this to kind of the next stage?
So thank you, Mr. Mayor, for the opportunity to comment. So we would, the bottom line is we're interested very much. We would like to be a part of that. I think that with Teresa and Katie and Deborah and Jim and I from the health center's perspective, Marcella as a board member from both the health center and the chair of our community advisory committee, that we could work with a number of individuals to at the municipality level, and we'd like to take that, to share information with the community advisory committee. So we'll make sure that we keep those channels of communication open, but I suspect we want a fairly small and nimble group that can collect information, and then again we will validate it through the community as well as through the clinicians, and then bring it back to the functional planning committee. And we'll have to do that in a way that protects, again, the clinical priority of Teresa and Katie and Deborah is around providing service, but we have to figure out a way somehow to get their important feedback, but also allow them to concentrate on their priorities, and we'll have to figure out a way to do that. But that's our job, and we're committed to making that work.
Okay, well, thank you. I don't need to put you on the spot or anything, but my suggestion is that if we could get perhaps have a conversation offline about just kind of how to get the necessary information and the necessary parties together to produce a document that identifies the particular needs that we're trying to fill, and provides some substantiation for those needs, so that which of course will help us to pitch a project to the community and to attract fundraisers or not fundraisers, attract donors and so on. So anyway,
absolutely.
That's
Yeah, so you could use myself as a point person, and either Jim, Marcella, or myself. But I'm happy to do that, and then we'll reach out to our colleagues to make sure that we get the type of specific feedback that is required. And also to be sensitive to time, I appreciate sometimes there's granting and funding opportunities that are time limited, and we're used to doing that, and to making sure that we can take advantage of everything that may be available.
Okay. Well, thank you. I'll just ask one more time if there are any questions or closing remarks or anything, and.
I had just one closing remark, and that is just to thank Mr. Mayor and Council and the township, Whitestone leadership and staff for everything that you do. It's very difficult and challenging times for everyone, but municipal leadership is in some respects is even more challenging. You have all of the demands for everything from roads and infrastructure to healthcare and education, and so we appreciate that there are good people that are willing to work very hard for their community, and we couldn't do it without you. So thanks for everything that you do.
Well, thank you, Donald, and all the others who have participated from the Health Center. I appreciate your taking time to be with us this evening, and thank you for your efforts year-round on our behalf, especially in these difficult times for healthcare delivery. We'll undertake to stay in touch and see what we can do to put flesh on the bones. Thank you very much.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor.
Wear a mask.
Mr. Mayor, Councilman.
Stay safe.
Councilman Kia.
Go ahead, Councillor Kin.
Yeah, just as a committee member on the Whitestone Nursing Station, just so the public is aware that the Whitestone Nursing Station formed an ad hoc committee, and that was prior to and going into COVID, so the timing was terrible in that respect for that reason. But we had the facilities manager from the West Whitestone Health Center up, and he looked at the logistics of utilizing the existing building and expanding from the present building format. And he was very positive about what he saw in terms of the water supply to the building, the electrics, in addition to what's there, or out from what's there in the building. So that was a pretty favorable meeting. The site study, from all intents and purposes, looks satisfactory in terms of available space on the site. The only thing I hadn't heard totally confirmed was the septic, but I understand that there should not be an issue with the septic there as well. And I guess finally, in closing, the possibility of an IPIC grant looms. I know the timing is very critical for that, but this is another possibility that we can hope for and shoot for if we could have an ad hoc committee of sorts get to the stage of having plans. And I know we have to submit a formal presentation to apply for such a grant, and timing is everything. But anyway, just final comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, and thanks again to our guests. I'm going to move on to the next part of the meeting.
Leaving the meeting.
Thanks for joining us.
Jim, Hannah,
Leaving the meeting.
Donald Sanderson, West Perry Sound Health Center.
Leaving the meeting.
Katie Hoag.
Leaving the meeting.
Deborah Randall Wood, West Perry Sound Health Center.
Leaving the meeting.
John and Sheila Wesley.
Leaving the meeting.
Susan Adamson.
Okay, I just wanted to wait till those exit announcements were completed. Now the next item we have is a planning item. Madam Clerk, do you believe is there a reason why we need to go into committee of the whole for this particular item? I think it's just going to be presented to us, no?
I agree, Mr. Mayor. We put it in committee of the whole in case there was some intended discussion, but it's really just a reasonable request to extend the timeline for the installation of the privacy fencing, and we wrote the motion accordingly.
Well, so if, unless anyone has an objection, what I'm proposing to do here is to skip over the over that moving into committee of the whole and then moving back out of it again, and simply deal with then with item 6.1. And I would ask, if I can, I would just ask the clerk or our planning assistant, whoever is going to carry this item, to fill us in on what it is, and then we have a motion. Then we'll get a motion.
I can do that unless, Paula, did you want to speak to this? I'm hearing no. And so we were called we entered into an agreement with Mr. Greenwood in September, and one of the components of the agreement was some privacy fencing that he would install within 90 days. And he has been having some trouble with getting the lumber and getting the work done, and we all know that this is probably a truthful challenge that he's having based on the COVID and the lack of wood supplies, and he has requested that we give him an extension to May 30th, 2021, and I believe that's a reasonable extension. He's going to purchase the wood when he's able to, and then get the fence built. So I would have no qualms of recommending that we allow Mr. Greenwood this extension, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll read a suggested motion and see if we can get a mover and seconder. The motion I'm looking for is that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone hereby approves Ted Malcolm Greenwood's request for an extension for the timeline for the installation of the privacy fencing as stated in Section 2F of the Site Plan Agreement dated September 16th, 2020 as follows. Fencing to be completed by May 30th, 2021. Could I get a mover and seconder for that motion, please?
I'll move it, Councillor Lamb.
Thank you, Councillor Lamb. Seconded by?
I'll second, Councillor Woods.
Okay, I heard Councillor Woods. Thank you. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, just a quick question. This doesn't, so many planning items seem to have a 1-year time frame, or they have to get done by. And is this one of them? Is there a time frame that he must do it? I know he had agreed to do it this fall, but if he doesn't get it done by May 31st or whatever the date was, is there a date that it's unacceptable?
You know what?
Go ahead, Madam Clerk. It's a site plan agreement, and so I'm going to say the answer is no, but no, meaning no, there isn't there's a deadline. But this in the site plan agreement, but it's our site plan agreement, and we are the ones who are have to be satisfied by it. It's not the planning board or the Ontario Municipal or the LPAT or some other external agency that we have to satisfy.
Yeah, I just
If
want to
I may,
make sure.
we also have a generous security deposit from Mr. Greenwood.
I just want to make sure that this is, taking the time frame out till next May, but it's not in any way the decision of council to not have that fencing. I mean, that fencing is, I still think, is important for the community. So.
You're correct, Councillor Lamb, and it doesn't alter any of the other conditions of the site plan agreement. It just provides an extended time for completion of this particular one.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? All right, I will ask. I think I will ask the clerk, if you don't mind, Madam Clerk, to call the roll on this, please.
I will, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Gorham Matthews.
Yes.
Councillor Lamb.
Yes.
Councillor McEwen.
Yes.
Councillor Woods.
Yes.
Mayor Comrie.
Yes. Okay, thank you. That motion is carried. Now we have, that brings us to our consent agenda, which consists of a few items. We can have discussion. I mean, some of these you may wish to raise when we follow the when we follow approval of it. But we're hoping to approve the 4 items. They are the regular council minutes from the meeting of September 21st. A proposed schedule. 9.2 is a proposed schedule of holiday hours for the municipal office and the landfill sites. Item 3 is a proposed council meeting schedule for calendar year 2021. And number 4, 9.4, is the list of unfinished business, which is on page 3 of your agenda. So could I get a motion, please, that the Council of Municipality Whitestone hereby receives and or approves the items contained in the consent agenda dated October 6, 2020?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Councillor Gorham Matthews. Seconded by?
I'll second, Councillor McEwen.
Councillor McEwen, thank you. Is there any discussion about the motion to accept, approve the consent agenda, with the understanding that we can have some discussion afterwards if you wish, under matters arising?
Well, as long as we can have discussion under matters arising, then I'm okay with it.
All right. Anyone opposed then to approving this motion? All right, thank you. Now, I should have asked already, I guess, but is everyone satisfied with the minutes? Didn't see any errors or omissions there. How about the holiday office and landfill schedule?
Yeah, I have a question on that.
Go ahead, please.
In terms of the municipal office, I'm not in disagreement with the days and that sort of thing, but when it comes to December the 29th, December the 30th, and December the 31st, those 3 days, I assume, or I'm asking the question, would be covered by employees as either a vacation day or banked overtime, I would think, right?
If I may, Mr. Mayor, yes, that's correct.
Yes.
As well as a half day on December 24th.
Okay, and all that is overtime or okay, that answers my question.
Okay, thank you. Are there any comments or questions regarding the proposed council meeting schedule for 2021?
Well, again, I'll ask the question, are we going to we usually have that August meeting up in Ardbeg, and we pay the community center up there a couple of $100, which helps them. Now, I don't know whether, what form council meetings are going to take by that time. Hopefully we're back to
Leaving the meeting.
Some sort of normalcy, but should that be in Ardbeg, or do we want to keep them all in Whitestone?
I guess I'm waiting to see if anybody else had an answer to it. What we did last year, I believe, is we made sure that we did provide a donation to the club that runs the building in Ardbeg, Ardbeg Community Club, and so even though we didn't meet there, we did try to see that they were whole. I think that's a correct statement. That was certainly what we discussed at the time. So I don't know. We could perhaps separate the question of where the meeting is from the question of support for that community center. However, I would also note that there are some residents of that end of the municipality who did appreciate the opportunity to attend the meeting without traveling all the way around to Dunchurch. And so, I think perhaps what we could do is take it under advisement and have this conversation as we get a little closer to the summer. I would also repeat a comment that I made to the clerk when I saw this was on the agenda, which is that, it's perhaps a little premature in some ways for us to know with certainty what our schedule is going to be. There are, we don't know when we'll be getting back to face-to-face meetings, and we don't know a bunch of other things. And so it's possible that as the agenda unfolds, we may have to add some meetings into some of those months where there's only one meeting, and we may have to look at how we're going to handle the budgets and perhaps add some special meetings to deal just with budgets as we did last year. So, my comment would be, this isn't really cast in stone. This is sort of an intended schedule to try to give people something that they could write into their calendars, but we'll have to have some flexibility as we go forward.
Sure, I think we should take that August 3rd meeting and schedule it at least temporarily for Ardbeg. We've historically done it up there. We do get attendance at those meetings, and I would like to see it still be in Ardbeg. In terms of what we pay, if I'm not correct, I think, or I'm not mistaken, we gave a substantial donation this year to the hall up there. So, but anyway, if we have to pay extra to be in Ardbeg, then we should do that. But I think it should be in Ardbeg and not everything down at the community center in Whitestone.
Okay, thank you. Let's make that note on the schedule, Madam Clerk, and we'll see how the situation is as we get closer. I'm hoping it won't be a moot point because we're still holding 100% electronic meetings, but we'll see. Anyway, any other comments about the items on the consent agenda, either the meeting schedule or the unfinished business, or? Okay, well, hearing none, perhaps we could move on then to accounts payable. And for that, we would need a motion that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone does hereby approve accounts payable in the amount of $173,480.41 and payroll in the amount of $39,410.57 for payment. May I get a mover and seconder, please?
I'll move, Councilor McEwen.
Thank you, Councilor McEwen, seconded by
I'll second it.
Sir Gorman Matthews. Thank you. Questions or comments on the accounts payable? Okay. Going once. Thank you, Madam Clerk. I'll ask you if you don't mind to read the read the roll for the vote.
Councillor Gore Matthews,
Yes.
Councillor Lamb,
Yes.
Councillor McEwen,
Yes.
Councillor Woods,
Yes.
Mayor Comrie.
Yes. All right. Thank you. That motion is carried. That brings us to bylaws, and we have actually only one, 11.1. And this is a bylaw to close and stop up a shore road allowance in for Lister is the applicant. So I will read to you the proposed bylaw or the proposed motion, I'm sorry, to approve this bylaw. That bylaw 52-2020, being a bylaw to close and stop up that part of the original shore road allowance along the shores of Washcash Lake in front of Lot 28, concessions 4 and 5, and in front of the original road allowance between concessions 4 and 5 in front of Lot 28 in the geographic township of Mackenzie, out of the municipality of Whitestone, designated as Part 9, Plan 42R-16378, be given a first and second reading as attached. And whereas bylaw 52-2020 has been given a first and second reading with no amendments, be it resolved that bylaw 52-2020 be given a third and final reading and enacted as of this date. Is there a mover for this motion?
I'll move it, Councillor Lamb.
Thank you. Seconded by?
I'll second, Councilor McEwen.
Thank you. Any discussion? Okay, once again, I think we should have the vote recorded, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Gore Matthews,
Yes.
thank you. Councillor Lamb,
Yes.
Councillor McEwen,
Yes.
Councillor Woods,
Yes.
thank you. Mayor Comrie.
Yes. Now, the next item, 11.2, it is my understanding that there is still some discussion going back and forth about the wording of the of this amendment to the conditions for approval of consent. This is the Nash property on Gooseneck Lake. So we are not, am I correct, Madam Clerk? We are not ready to proceed with this tonight?
That's correct, Mr. Mayor. We'll be meeting virtually, of course, with Mr. Nash this week, and we hope to get this resolved soon.
All right, thank you.
Can I ask the question, was it resolved and then something's come up since this agenda was put together? Like, why was it put on the agenda if it's not resolved?
If I may,
Clerk?
Mr. Mayor, yes, thank you. There's been discussion going back and forth with Mr. Nash, and at the time the agenda was put together, we were hopeful that the wording had been resolved and sort of maintained that position until we had heard back from Mr. Nash that he wished to speak to us and perhaps make some adjustments and provide further explanation to some of the words that are in the amendment. And so at that point, it was too late to pull it from the agenda because it had already been printed.
Okay, thank you.
We are, however, going to try to ensure that this doesn't happen again, and I asked the clerk to convey to the Nashes that we can't keep deferring this item off the agenda. So next meeting it better be ready to go, or we'll put what we'll put our version of it on for approval. Anyway, that leads us then to staff reports. And
Mr. Mayor, it's Scott Nash. Do you mind if I make a comment about our item this evening?
Well, since it hasn't been on the agenda, I'm sorry. We're not. You will have. I'm going to say no, Scott, because you will have an opportunity to work with our staff to get something between now and the next meeting, and I don't think there's any merit in having an open discussion, especially since we don't have a motion on the floor and we don't have a.
Okay.
You know, the item has been pulled from the agenda for this meeting.
No, that's fine. It was just the reason I wanted to say that is we hadn't heard anything from the municipality from September 21st till the 29th or 30th of September. So you ask why it keeps getting deferred. It's because there is over a week that we hadn't heard anything from the municipality. So we want to get this over as much as you guys do, and we're looking forward to being able to resolve it. So.
All right. Well, I'm certainly hoping that will happen, and we'll be able to proceed with it next time. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
So we are now under staff reports. We have a report related to well, it's a report 2020-10, which is COVID-19 related grant and funding opportunities, that has been prepared by staff, and I'll ask the clerk the CAO clerk to introduce
Leaving the meeting.
Subject, and
Paula Macri.
And then we will we'll entertain some discussion around what councillors think we should do to move this forward.
Oh, thank you, Mr.
Go ahead,
Mayor.
please.
So we have, as council knows, 2 grant funding opportunities, plus we have received what's called the money from the Safe Start program. And I got notification today, I think after I spoke with you, Mr. Mayor, that indeed the money will be in our account within the first 2 weeks of October. So that was the confirmation that we were waiting for. So I'm starting backwards from the report. The Safe Start money we have, and it's simply intended for operating costs and pressures, and that's all the information we have at this point. The other two opportunities are actually grants that we have to apply for, and there's certain criteria associated with them, but they're both focused on COVID resilience. The first one is the ICIP, so this is the largest of the funding opportunities, and municipalities pay 80%. The federal provincial contribution is 80%, and the municipalities pay 20% of whatever project that ends up getting approved. And as you can see, I've gone through some of the criteria and popped in potential projects. Most of them, in fact, all of them, I've heard from council with opportunities for potential projects that may fit into the criteria. And then there's the second opportunity, which is less robust in terms of funding, is the Ontario Trillium Foundation Fund. No contributory monies are expected from the municipality, and it's $5,000 to $150,000. There's a very scoped criteria for either inspired people, which is culture related, or active people, which is recreational related projects that would fit into, for municipalities that would fit into this program. And in speaking to the Trillium people, it's very specific. You need to ask the question, COVID happened in our community, and then what? Why do we need the money? So when you fill out the application, you have to tell a story. Why do you need the money, and how does it fit with COVID resilience in terms of supporting your community? What has changed, and what do you need to do to help the community through the COVID times? So those are the two opportunities that we have. And as you can see, there's been lots of ideas bandied about for some different projects, and I've just presented them as they were given to me by council, and in one instance by Mrs. Lamb from the library board. So, I'm hopeful that there can be we can move on some decisions. We have some time, but the ICIP funding application is a little complicated and long-winded. Trillium, not so much, but they still take some time. So whatever projects we decide on, we want to make sure that we've got our good financial piece set up so we know what the estimates are and we can defend that. And then we have to actually write the grant application, and that's a little time-consuming. So I want to make sure that we leave ourselves enough time to press the send button on December 2nd.
Okay, well, thank you. I guess we can open this up for discussion. You will see that there are, under each of the two streams that are currently identified, the ICIP one, which those ultimately are federal funds. Am I correct, MCAO?
They're federal provincial funds.
So they flow through the province the same as?
Yes, they do.
Yeah. All right. So these are, again, if you look at the various possibilities that are there, expansion of the municipal office, expansion of the community center, the nursing station, etc. Infrastructure, broadband is another project, and I will comment on that in a minute, perhaps. But and other projects related to other assets that we have, recreational assets and so on. Those are really those three categories are the only ones that we could have, and I guess interested to see what people think about which ones are the best fit for an argument that we had to do something because of COVID-19 and best use of the funds in terms of things that we know that we want to do. The Trillium one is a little bit tighter, and as CIO Kirk mentioned, that it's probably harder to make an argument for some of these things if they're things that we would be nice to do, and we would do them. But if they're not, if we're not doing them primarily as a response to needing to change, programs that we offer or facilities that we have to make them more usable in the pandemic, then we're not going to get money. So anyway, I'll throw it out to comments first and see what people. What do you think about what's in front of you?
Mr. Mayor, could I comment? Councilman Kuhn? Yeah, the Schedule A and Schedule B. Schedule A is specific, and it does mention health infrastructure. So it seems like there might be some applicable for the nursing station in that vein. It seems like an opportunity that may never come around again, and it very much could be COVID-driven. So that I would consider that as a priority of sorts of the first part of that. And then the Trillium, of course, and then it, again, Schedule B, which is specific in wording for the municipal library. So there are two that go by word description that could fit for applications, one being the nursing station and then the Trillium grant for the library. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Other comments?
Yes, Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I'm just wondering, would we have the information about the nursing station with regards to what it's going to cost and what our needs are in time to apply for this? Is it December that this ICIP grant has to be in for?
It is in both cases. The deadline is December the 2nd to apply for at least. Now ICIP is potentially an ongoing thing, but when the next window of opportunity would be is I don't know unless our CAO does. But I would hate to miss an opportunity from a timing point of view. And there, as she mentioned earlier, they are fairly complex applications. They tend to require a lot of detail. They have to be pretty well thought through and scoped out and everything. And so I wonder if we could do that by, as much as I'd like to, I wonder if we could do that by December 2nd. Do what is necessary to put together a credible application. I'm talking relative to the nursing station.
Yeah, Councillor Lamb, I mean, yeah, I'm certainly not against it. It's just I don't know how you get there from the discussion that we had tonight, unless I'm missing detail behind the scene that I don't know. You're going to have to get buy-off, with the hospital, and God, I wish this was maybe 6 or 8 months from now, but I don't know that we can put together enough in time for that. The other one that sticks out, I guess, to me, and I had ticked sort of the nurses station, and the other one that stuck out to me was the expansion of the office. And again, the story, I guess, do they not have to be, both of them, do they not have to be related to COVID? And I'm just wondering if that's true, how the story gets put together. Like, we're going to expand the municipal office, and it's going to cost $200,000, and it's driven by COVID. I guess they're great storytellers, so I guess I leave it to someone. Or the nurses station is the same sort of thing. Is that driven by COVID, or is, well, I guess it is after what we heard tonight from the rest of them. That takes, I thought I heard, twice the space to do 2/3 of the programs that they were doing before. So that's certainly got a COVID kind of bent to it, as Councillor McEwen says. So, but whatever it is, if it's a specific thing where we need lots of detail, I just don't know how we get there with the nurses station. And I guess the question that I would have of staff, does the same thing apply to expanding the municipal office? Are we in a position to have a credible application go forward on that project by December the 1st or not?
I'll let the CIO answer.
Yeah, if I may, Mr. Mayor, we've looked at, as you know, a number of expansion options and decided that they weren't quite what we were looking for in terms of the actual space that's needed. So our architect undertook a space planning project to actually measure out and decide how much space is needed in each office, so in each area, whether it's for the planning assistant or the CBO or the treasurer, or the, how much storage we need for and how much growth we'll have in terms of file cabinets. So that work was just about done. And I would say that if that was council's choice, we could be ready in terms of having a proposal, because once that space function planning is done, then it's just a matter of drawing up a couple of concepts and pricing them out. One of the reasons it makes sense to expand the municipal office in terms of the COVID is that there's not very many spaces within that office that people can be 6 feet apart, whether it's in the hallway or the lunchroom. Certainly not in the photocopy room. Really should be maximum of one person in there. And even at the desk, we put up some plexiglass, so we solved some of those problems. But it's a pretty tiny office, and there was talk of expanding it certainly before COVID came along for that very reason. We don't have room. If we wanted an intern or their cemetery folks need to come in and do some work, there's just not extra room. So, at one time the office size suited the municipality, but the municipality has evolved. So to make a long story longer, I believe that if that was council's choice as a project, we could be ready if we start soon in terms of putting an application together.
Mr. Mayor, could I ask a CEO question?
Sure.
I know, CEO, the same arguments kind of apply for the nursing station in a lot of respect. From what I heard tonight, and I tried to be specific in getting a commitment from them, but the manpower, the availability of resources to put a fairly quick report together, it sounds like it would be there for the nursing station. If we were to engage an architect or a consultant, someone to pull the team together and pull all the information together, we do have a couple months. So do you feel that it's insurmountable to do this with the resources we have available?
No, I don't. I think either project could be pulled together. It sounded like the nursing station or the Westbury Sound Health Center was up for putting a task force together. Either way, you have to engage an architect and get your numbers together and tell the story. How is this related to COVID resilience, and probably either project could tell a good story.
Right. If I might add one other, if we were to lean toward using some of our First Start monies for the expansion at the offices, could that be an acceptable approach? Maybe to I don't want to see us bypass the offices as just saying I feel my number one priority probably be the library, but I do feel strongly that there is a need for the office expansion as well.
I believe the Safe Start money, I believe that the office expansion would fit into the Safe Start funding envelope. Like I say, it's pretty brief. It's operating, COVID-related operating expenses and pressures. So one might suggest that not having enough space in your office in terms of physical distancing would be a pressure. The reporting on that funding is vague at this point. We really don't know how we're going to have to report. We don't expect we're going to have to give any money back. That certainly hasn't been said in any way, shape, or form. Simply just some sort of high-level reporting, I understand.
And I think it's 232. Sorry, yes, that's the $232,000 you're talking about, Madam Clerk?
Yes, that's the $232,300.
And that some of that, if I am understanding it, some of that could then be applied to, or all of it applied to it, and written up to try to get money for the office, and then the other monies could go. We could go to the nursing station, the other application, so we could have both going. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, the nursing station would be a true funding application through ICIP. The Safe Start monies, like I say, we really don't have a lot of information. We were told we're giving this money. It indicated it was for operating pressures or operating costs and pressures related to COVID, and that's all. I've got a couple of calls in to get a little bit more information, but I haven't been able to get any information back. So, one would. It's hard to say. It may be a very good way to spend the money, but we don't know what the reporting is going to look like at the end of the year, and we haven't been provided with that information. It would be just a good guess that this money could be utilized for the expansion of the office based on the physical distancing challenges that we have.
Yeah. I don't think that there's any question about that. And the difference is that we already have that money. We don't have to apply for it. So writing up a justification for how we spend it is a much less involved thing than writing up an application for an ISIP grant.
I see. Okay.
So there's a lot more work involved, and we can. I think we're on pretty safe ground spending that money. As you say, the government did not. Based on what I heard about it is, look, we know you've incurred extra costs. We've divided it up across the 440 municipalities or however many there are in the province, and this is how much you get, and use it wisely. You don't have to apply for it, but you will have to account for it so that they know that people didn't use it to plan a getaway trip for the council or something. But anyway, there is another item that I would just want to draw to your attention and give you a little bit of information on, and that is the one that is sorry, it's down under item 2. It says response infrastructure, including measures to support physical distancing. One of the items, the item B there says broadband infrastructure. And the argument, by the way, is that it is very difficult for us to have really good collaborative working sessions and meetings without adequate internet bandwidth, without broadband. And it's making things difficult in the whole community because our people in general don't have good broadband. Compared to even other areas of West Parry Sound that are south of us, closer to Parry Sound. So I think that there is a potential case there, that could be made for some funding. And by the way, there is a decent limit, which is 80% of $10 million, right? So it's it could be a significant amount of money. Anyway, we were approached recently by the Mayor and Council of McKellar, who are in the same boat we are, and their council has determined that their number one biggest issue in the municipality is lack of adequate broadband, and so they were inquiring if we would be able to work together on a joint funding application and they're talking specifically about ISIP, not about the Trillium. So I think that was their number one priority. They also, by the way, did say that they were prepared to provide support for the nursing station because they're aware of the fact that a significant number of their residents are actually using the nursing station. So just so you're aware of that. But in terms of infrastructure, we are having a meeting with representatives of the smart network group that is involved with the project that's going on south of us. This is in Seguin and Archipelago, and it actually involves Carling in a way, and involves ViaNet. And what they're doing is they have put some, the Archipelago and Seguin have both put some money on the table, and they managed with some other government funding to get a project which is using fixed wireless to reach up into down into Seguin and up into Carling and improve bandwidth and connectivity for a certain number of people at a certain price. There's a price point, and there is the requirement that there not be data caps. Anyway, they have got approval, and they're going to be putting up two towers, one I guess in Carling and one in McDougall, and those municipalities have approved the towers, and these are towers that are used to provide fixed wireless to residents for whom it's expensive to run wires. And part of the original plan behind this was to continue to go north by linking towers with microwave and to put, so their next hop would basically put them in McKellar, and another hop or two would put them into Whitestone. And so we're actually having a meeting on Wednesday morning to talk about this a little bit offline to see whether there is something practical that would get us a quick solution in terms of getting, better, cheaper access here. And so, I'm very interested to see whether there's what we hear about this. It's been talked about for a long time, but just in the last year or so, things have actually started to happen, and they're starting to get some infrastructure in the ground. So there again, there might be an opportunity for us to put together an application, and either separately or together with McKellar, and it could be for what amounts to a fairly significant chunk of infrastructure, and it could be we could make an argument that we would get it done sooner rather than waiting for the common carriers to get around to doing, which which I think they're not likely to do. So, and keep in mind that even for things that we want to do in our community center and our municipal office, bandwidth is an issue today. We don't really have adequate bandwidth. Even like if we were doing this meeting that we're having tonight on video conference, some people would be having very choppy video, as you have experienced yourselves. I think when we tried it earlier, you'd have difficulty sharing documents and everybody following along in lockstep and everybody seeing each other and so on. So and clearly that's where we need to go. We need to get for the long term. So anyway, that's just another possibility. I mean, I think there's a lot of data already exists that can be used to support an application. We have pretty good data about the levels of service that people have in the area and so on. So it's not like you're starting a study from scratch and trying to do it between now and December 2nd, but it may be just maybe too much of a stretch depending on what we hear on Wednesday.
Mr. Mayor, if I might interrupt, how is bandwidth COVID related? How is
bandwidth is COVID
related?
It's COVID related. Sorry,
Yeah.
it's COVID related because what you see happening is you have students doing online learning instead of actually showing up in the classroom. You have people who are trying to do their meetings that they would normally do face-to-face using facilities like Zoom, which require a certain amount of bandwidth both up and down in order to do it without having the video all choppy. And if you try to do things like, it's one thing if you just see a little picture of the person who's talking, but if you're trying to share a document that you're working on, if your business involves collaboration, you can't do it. You can't do it with the speeds that we have, which I mean, I guess Councillor Lamb, yours is a little better these days because they'll put up that extra tower. But where I am on the Washkish, I've got the best I can get is about 5 megabits per second down and about 1 up. And the 5 down is enough on as long as you actually get it. That's enough to like stream a video, for example. But if you're trying to send video if you're trying to send it from your location, not enough. So so I can't easily share documents from there. And anybody who's watching me sees, they see my picture jumping all over instead of you can't follow the person talking or anything like that. You can hear them, but you can't. So that's how is it COVID related? It's COVID related because that's the way we're going to do business going forward, I think.
Sure, and I certainly understand the issue. You didn't mention the library. As soon as you get 2 people, 3 people, 5 people on a computer over there, and you're trying to bring out a book, you can't do it because it all crashes. So broadband is important. I'm not trying to put it down. I just was trying to figure out the connection to COVID. So thank you.
Anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there. It is mentioned here in the mix, but we'll see. Any other comments that people have about like what are your
well, if I might, Mr. Mayor, I guess when I think of we're thinking of the big projects, being the office and the nurses station, and I think that's well and good. And certainly I'm supportive of that. But also there's another whole issue surrounding COVID in terms of PPE and there are I haven't been able to research it that much, but there are machines that you can get that automatically take like 99 0.9% of germs and whatever in your office out of the office, right? And it can be done several times a day, or in the community hall, or in the library, or in wherever, right? And so there's a whole bunch of direct COVID-related things that we've done or need to do as we come out of this. And I guess if we don't apply for those sorts of things, because we try to go for the big things, then we'll have to fund those things out of our operating budget as we go forward, because we can't really, we have to be responsible that way. So I guess but those aren't big items. Those are not hundreds of thousands of dollars. And the only other comment I'll make, and again back to the nurses station, this is something that would take I think, maybe I'm wrong, a lot of work to get down on paper, and it certainly has to be a direct collaboration with a lot of work from the hospital. In fact, the hospital probably writing a lot of this, justification and all that. Now maybe they have the staff to do that, but they're going to be a major player in this thing. And again, I come back to, what about the other communities? I guess if it's a grant, it's a grant. It's for everyone, I guess. Fundraising, grants within the hospital system, all those sorts of things. I don't know. I guess we can try, but I'm very skeptical that we can get a credible application going forward, by December 1st. But if, I'm not doing it, so if staff say they can do it, then God bless you,
Okay, well, there is certainly some questions that we would have to ask. Are there other comments people, other councillors want to weigh in on this?
Yeah, I guess looking at it tonight, I think it is a great opportunity for the nursing station if we think we can get all this information together in time. I think it's probably a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to get this amount of money to be able to do it, and I think it's certainly justifiable and COVID-related, not just the expansion, but the changes that are required to the nursing station in order to make it safe and usable in the future. I think there's certainly a good argument to use the Safe Restart program money for the expansion at the community center, and even for what Councillor Lamb was referring to in terms of the machines to clean the air, and whether you're talking about air purifiers or a fogging machine. Any of those could be purchased under the Safe Restart program, and even if we can't use all of the money from that program for the expansion, we certainly can use a good portion of it towards renovation of the front entrance, and the area where we're communicating and greeting people would certainly qualify as a COVID-related expense in the municipal office. So I think if Councillor McEwen thinks that all the players involved in the nursing station can get this done in time, I think it's a great opportunity to maybe go for the big win and see if we can get the money for the nursing station.
Okay. Anybody? I guess we haven't heard from Councillor Wood. You have any thoughts on the subject, Brian?
As far as the nursing station goes, I think it would be a lot of work to get it all done in time, the report set up, and this application done. But if everybody seems to think it could be done, it would definitely be, a golden opportunity to get the kind of money that we need to do the expansion. The office expansion is also an important one. I'd show support for either one of them.
Okay. Well, I guess I don't know if it's premature to try and bring this to a head, but we have essentially three funding opportunities, one of which is not just an opportunity, we already have the funds. So I guess we have to look around and say, well, what do we got the $232,000 that came from the Safe Restart. What do we want? Do we know what we want to spend that on? And then if, for example, we were to say, okay, that should go towards the office expansion and maybe, as someone suggested, towards some air purification for some of our spaces, that would, I think there's no question that's a legitimate expenditure of those funds. So that would leave for ISIP one of the bigger projects, and potentially for for Trillium one of the smaller projects. Because there's less money available. I guess, are we anywhere close to saying, okay, this is what we should target the Safe Restart funds for. This is what we should target the ISIP application for. And if I think in the case of the two sort of bigger projects that we've talked about, which are in the nursing station and the infrastructure, we need a little bit more information, and probably what we have to do is have a quick conversation with the West Perry Sound Health Center and say, look, is this doable? And does it fit with other things that because they could be applying for funds as well, I guess. Well, maybe not. Maybe not through ISIP, but they may have other applications that through healthcare funding channels that they're trying to get money for that would be seen as an overlap with something. So I don't know. But anyway, we would need to ask them a few questions beyond what we discussed tonight, and the same with the infrastructure. I mean, I think we'll have an idea as of Wednesday of this week whether there's anything that could go forward that we could do that would help us as a municipality in the short run or not in terms of broadband. And the answer may be, yeah, there's something we can do, but it's not short term, it's longer term, or it may be, I don't know, that may be a subject of I don't know. It's hard to say. It's just without having that meeting, I don't have any. I can't tell you it's a good possibility or not. So I don't know. But I'm still curious. I know our staff would appreciate, because they're going to have to do a chunk of work on this, or whatever we decide to do.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I think the consensus is within the group that we'll go for the nurses station funding, or try, based on a call or over the next week or two, to see if it's a doable thing. We'll try that with is it called ISIP funding, and we'll use the $232,000 for the office expansion. We'll kind of go that way. Don't forget ISIP. I think that's only 80%, isn't it? So if that
building, it's 80% up to $10 million.
So if that building costs $400,000 or $500,000 to expand the nurses station, we're going to be on the hook for whatever, 20% of $500,000's what, 100,000 or something, right?
Yeah.
So, and as you know, at the library, we put on an extension, and it ended up costing us, $700,000 or $600,000 or so, right? So, you're not going to get a lot for $200,000, and in today's world. So you're talking at some major dollars, and you know, and I would expect that even if we get the funding, that we should be approaching. If we have a $100,000 bill, we should be approaching McKellar and Magnetawan to, you know, help share in that 100,000 or so, right? But that's down the road somewhere. So, but I think that that's the consensus at this point as to what we should be applying for on the two big grants. And I would say we go forward, but if over the next 2 or 3 weeks we find out that this can't be done for the nurses station, and again, a lot of the work's going to have to be done by the hospital. And if they can't do it or say, whoa, that's a little too quick, then we're going to have to rethink it, right?
All right. Well,
Mr. Mayor, could I have a comment?
Sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, I appreciate Councillor Lamb's comments there, and I think that would be a good approach to feel our way into it a little bit here and make sure that, based on what they told us tonight and what certainly my perceptions have been, that they will give the support we need. The library has been working toward funds for future expansion and project-related capital items, and they have somewhere in the neighborhood of $100,000 to contribute, as I understand it, or a good portion of $100,000. So if we can, in fact, work with our neighbors to support our extra overruns and such, then so be it, and that would be great. So just to give you the information on the bit of money that we do have on hand from the nursing station group. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm trying to fit the discussion into a motion here, and I want to try this on you and see if there's here's what I have as a sort of a template for a motion that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone does hereby receive report admin 2020-10 COVID-19 grant and funding opportunities for information. So that's kind of a no-brainer. We already did that. And that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone does hereby recommend the following project for an application to the ICIP COVID-19 resilience stream. And let me see if, okay, it's all resilience stream, sorry. So what I'm hearing is that you would suggest putting nursing station expansion in there. Is that, am I interpreting that to be the consensus?
Yes.
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 Okay, I'll just put nursing station expansion, and of course we will have to follow up and investigate whether this is practical to get done by December 2nd. And that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone does hereby recommend the following project for an application to the Ontario Trillium Foundation Resilient Communities Fund. What would you suggest be put in there? That's now on page 3 of the report. Again, there were two groups. There's the Inspired People one, which is the proposal that it would be the Whitestone Library and Technology Center programming and equipment, and then the Active People one, which is projects related to our recreational trails, enhanced recreation programming. There's programs at the community center, improved air quality, and I'm assuming we'll do the air quality as part of the main facilities piece. So, but is there something that you want to suggest we put there under the Trillium Foundation?
Mr. Mayor, Councilor McEwen.
Yeah.
A question: can we only apply for one? First question.
I believe we can only, the clerk can confirm, but I believe we can only submit one application for each.
Okay.
Am I correct, Madam CAO?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For the Trillium Foundation, yes, absolutely one. For the ICEP, I haven't been able to confirm whether we're permitted to make other applications. I need to make other applications, but some municipalities are making several, but I haven't seen anything to indicate either way. But what I can confirm is Trillium is one application, whether it's your library, your rec committee, your public works, but one per municipality.
Okay, thank you for that. So,
secondly, Mr. Mayor, do we know what amount we're looking for, say, for the library? If we're going to enhance their ability to finish off the library, we've done so darn much work on it right now and moving forward to, are we looking at 10 or 20 or $30,000 to do the equipment part of it? Can Councilor Lammer or someone comment on that?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I wonder if we might let, I know Kath has worked a bit with Michelle on this, so if you could open it up so she could maybe talk to it a bit. I know she knows an awful lot about this, so a lot more than I do. So.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. 2 weeks ago, Michelle and I had a wonderful coaching session with the Ontario Trillium Foundation, and what Michelle explained about the story that has to be told, they were very clear that we have to talk about what has happened, what has changed, and what do we need to do to make the community whole again in terms of COVID. So we have funding between $5,000 and $150,000. We're advised not to go as high as $150,000, but to certainly aim high, way higher than $5,000. So I haven't done the budget yet because I wanted to wait to see how this meeting was, but I think it'd be realistic to say we're probably going to ask for about $50,000 for programming and for washable tables and chairs and all kinds of things we're going to need to ensure that the library is a safe place for people to come to, that we can sanitize the books and equipment properly. So I'm probably thinking around $50,000 off the top of my head.
Okay, thanks. Sounds reasonable.
I wonder if, Kathy, if you could, what would how would you explain the relationship between this and COVID-19? Are these things that were not in the current plans that we have to do in order to make? I mean, can you demonstrate that these are things that we have to do in order to make the library usable? Because I'm just looking at the list of programs. You're talking about oil painting, watercolor classes, cooking classes, etc. And I mean, right now, those are not. I mean, those are certainly not things that are happening in COVID-19. Why? Because you can't. Even if the library weren't under construction, you couldn't satisfy the physical distancing in the space. So you would have to do them virtually some way or other. So I don't know. Is the argument that, well, when things settle down with COVID-19, we will then be in a position to do some of these things, but we'll need to change the furnishings in the library, or I'm just trying to understand.
Sure. Thank you very much for that. The number of people we can offer classes to is going to be significantly reduced because of the social distancing. So it's still going to cost the same amount of money for an instructor if you have 10 people or 4 people. So that's going to be a direct COVID-related cost. Some of the programs absolutely will be done virtually. So we're going to have to ensure that we've got staff on hand to work with the instructor so that at a central location so that people can virtually understand what the class is. So there's an added cost. But a big cost is the furnishings. We have to make sure that we have wipeable furnishings. We can't have our chairs that are cloth. It's just not acceptable at all. So all those chairs have to be replaced. We have to make sure that the children's area has furnishings that are washable, wipeable, and that they're safe for the children. we have to purchase a sanitizer so that when the equipment comes in, it can be sanitized for 72 hours before it goes back on the shelf. Does that help explain how we're going to deliver the services differently?
Okay, so that's what. So yeah, all right. So and you think that'll come to about $50,000 is what you're.
That's the budget. Suggesting? I think is. Michelle, what do you think? Is that based on our conversation? Do you think that's a reasonable number to be asking for?
Yes, actually it is, Kathy. You and I didn't talk money, but in my mind, probably that's about what it would be. Yep.
Thank you. And under this grant, we're allowed 15% of the grant for overhead and administration, and we're also allowed 10% of the grant to evaluate the funded project. So we'll be adding those costs into the ask as well.
Okay. I guess my final question would be: Is there a concern? Is there any concern that, given the fact that the municipality has already received a grant from Trillium towards the capital cost of the library, that they would just say, well, sorry, we're not going to give any more money to that particular that particular project?
I understand your question and your concern, and I think Michelle is prepared to do a follow-up with Trillium to ask them that question. But I got a very strong sense from talking to the coach that we had that they've got money, and if you can make a story, they're going to give you the money. Hmm. So I'm hoping that the concern you have and Michelle have, Mr. Mayor, I understand it, I respect it, but I'm hoping that it's not a valid reason for us not to get money.
Okay, well, let me ask Council if do you wish to put, are there any other comments or suggestions, or do you wish to put the library project into the Trillium slot here at this stage?
I would so support, Councilor McEwen.
As you know, as the library rep on, I support it. I don't see where anything else properly fits into that category that we have on the table. I think we can tell a story at the library and get the money, and ultimately, the money that I think there were monies in the budget, if I'm not mistaken, for furnishings in the 700,000. So if we're successful and get 50,000, I don't know how much of those furnishing monies that were budgeted won't be used, so we can use them elsewhere, if you get what I mean. So whether that's towards the office or the nursing station or whatever, right? So no. My wife's saying no, so I don't. I'll take that back. I support it.
Unfortunately, what's happened is the shelving that we're going to get is very pricey. So I think we're going to use up all of our money, Joe. So thank you for thinking of that, but I don't think so.
Sorry.
All right. Well, do any of the other councillors who haven't spoken want to indicate whether or not you support putting this project in under the Resilient Communities Fund?
Yeah, Councillor Gordon Matthews here. Sure, I support this project. The other projects under the Active People, I think it would be a stretch to say that sunshades for the beach, or as much as I want sunshades for the beach, it would be a stretch in terms of telling a story that this would bring people back out again. I think what we need is programs in the community that get people feeling safe again and get people engaged again in the public is what we need right now.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Okay, I'm going to write in. I'm just going to write in library I'm going to write a library furnishings and equipment. I'll put, how's that? Furnishings and equipment.
And programs.
Okay, but program, well, I don't know. All right, whatever. I don't want to.
Mr. Mayor, one program that I failed to mention is it would be really great if the school children could get back into the library during the daytime. And and unless we're prepared to provide a safe environment for them, they're not going to come in. So I think that's a consideration as well, is that reading program is really, really important to the children in our elementary school.
Okay, so let me then go to the last portion of this motion, and it says, and further, that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone does hereby recommend the following projects or operational improvements in respect to the funds received from the Federal Provincial Safe Restart Program. That's the $232,000. And I think the things that we had there were municipal office expansion, and retrofitting, because you have to. And maybe we could put down air quality improvements just to. And that would apply to the community center as well, but let's put air quality improvements because there might be some funds available for some things there that would come out of that if there is enough money. So what I have, again, the three parts to the motion are, well, four parts. First of all, receive the report. Second, the target for the ISIP funding application is the nursing station expansion. The target for the Trillium Foundation funding is the library furnishings, equipment, and programs. And the target for the Safe Restart Program funds is municipal office expansion and retrofitting and air quality improvements. Would someone like to move that?
I'll move that. I'll move for discussion, or second for discussion. Thank you.
Well, all right. So Councillor McEwen moves, and Councillor Gorham-Matthews I heard too. So, did I? Are you seconding Councillor Gorham-Matthews?
Sure. Yes, that's fine.
All right. Any further discussion of this motion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, if I could please.
Go ahead.
As was noted in the report, there have been like $13,000 spent in prep for making accessibilities and all that kind of thing around COVID in the office and throughout the municipality for signs and et cetera.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if part of the restart should be earmarked for that sort of need, and possibly at least an additional amount be set aside going into, say, 2021. We don't know where this is going to end up. And then the second concern I had was we've had the EMS, which is coming up later, correspondence, highlighted big time by the EMS group for an extra levy on municipalities. If, in fact, we do have to put out our $19,000, I believe it was, nearly $20,000, is that money that should be set aside also from this rather than earmark the whole thing for the expansion? Thank you.
Okay, well, I can answer your first comment easily in that I interpreted municipal office expansion and retrofitting to include any monies that we'd already spent.
Okay.
So I don't see a problem. I mean, that I would think that would be that's just an accounting entry when we come to justify how we spent the money. As far as the EMS cost overrun is concerned, I don't know. I mean, we can add that on the list. I mean, I guess we're gonna decide how we want to.
Yeah,
we're going to decide how we want to respond to it. But I guess if we decide to pay something, we're going to pay it one way or the other, and we could certainly justify using those funds for that. But I guess, it's sort of in the category of how far do these funds go. I mean, we could always add it to the list if you want, but I think we should discuss it first and see. We can always give staff direction to fund it out of that if that's what we choose to do, or budget for it in 20. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I don't know. That's fine.
Yep. Thank you.
Any other comments about this or questions? Well, if there are none, could I ask Madam Clerk for you to call the roll, please, and we'll go on it.
Can I just Mr. Mayor, sorry I just had a thought. Did I hear that under ISIP, if I'm saying it right, that you can apply for 2 projects? Did I hear the clerk say that there are communities that are applying for multiple projects?
I
hear that wrong.
You did hear that, and I think that is correct. That was kind of my understanding too. But
so is there any? I mean, if not to belong or take this on and on, but is there any strategic value to applying for the office stuff as a second application? Because if we don't get it, we can just use it anyway because we've got the 232,000. If I understand, the 232 is something that we have that they're not taking back. If I'm correct there, then why wouldn't we put both applications in and see if we can get both? And then we'll have the 232 to apply to whatever we want. Or am I seeing that wrong?
Do you want to respond, Madam CAO?
No, we could put 2 applications in. There's no doubt about that. It's really difficult to consider what the strategy is of the folks that are going to be reviewing the applications. My sense is they'll look at one per municipality, a good one per municipality, whether they give us 2 or not, and which one they would choose of the 2. It's really hard to say. I've tried to get more information on ISIP, and I do know a couple of municipalities that are going to try putting 2 applications in. Whether they're successful or not, or whether it's permitted, it's one of those. It's another unknown in terms of this funding source. So
but let's assume that we get one. We can always then go back, and I mean, what harm is there? Can't we then just use the 232 towards the other project, whatever it is? And maybe I'm seeing it wrong. I don't want to, but I don't see where the risk is.
I don't think there's a risk. I think there's a time element. I think it just depends on how much effort the Westbury Sound Health Center is willing to put into the nursing station application. As the mayor said, these tend to be complex and they're wordy, and there's a lot of editorial work as well as the significant finance pages to fill out. So it's just a time commitment for staff, and there's people in the community that can help. We can pay to get some help on these applications if needed. Try to fit it all in. If the Westbury Sound Health Center is going to take the lead on the nursing station, that would be excellent because they know the business and they would know what to write.
Well, I think we can start down the road, and then we could maybe at the next meeting see how it's going, and maybe more communities are putting in 2 applications. I mean, I don't know if there's no risk, and if we're going to do both, maybe we should think about it. We can always change our mind, right? And we can go with the motion tonight the way it is, but I just throw that out because I just thought about it. Like, if there's no risk, we might get lucky and hit the trifecta, get both projects and still have the 232. So how much is in the total federal government plan? Is this $100 billion or something? Or how much are they giving out?
Well, ISIP, they tell us, the total amount? I don't know, actually.
No, $3 billion.
$3 billion?
The COVID-19 resilience stream is $3 billion across Canada.
Oh, okay. Okay, I take back what I said then. Let's just go for the nurses station. They're not about to give us 2 projects when they only have $3 billion to put across the whole nation. So,
yeah.
Let's take a vote.
Okay, all right. Go ahead, Madam Clerk, please.
Yes, we'll call. Councillor Gore Matthews?
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Lamb?
Yes.
Councillor McEwen?
Yes.
Councillor Woods?
Yes.
And Mayor Comrie?
Yes. Okay. Anyway, I wrote it down twice on 2 separate pages. Okay, so now we're all right. That takes us down to business matters.
Leaving the meeting.
Marcella Schuldeis.
$13.1, we have 3 items under business. This is the supplementary EMS levy that we just alluded to. What you can see from the report what has actually happened. They overran the costs in the EMS, which is operated by the town of Parry Sound on behalf of the whole of West Parry Sound. Because we share in the funding of EMS, they said we need to, they being Parry Sound's EMS, said we need to get a levy, do a supplementary levy of the other municipalities. And they said we need $450,000 in total, and they divided it up proportionally amongst the municipalities according to the formula that's used, which left us with 19,000 or something, between 19 and 20,000. And they sent us a bill, sent us an invoice. Please pay this amount. You can see from the correspondence that the municipalities of Magnetawan and one of the other ones, was it Makar or where's my correspondence page here? I forget who it was. It was one of the other ones over on the east side. Somewhere I had I know where it is. Sorry. Just going to look and see. Yeah, it was Makar. I apologize for the stumbling around. And anyway, Magnetawan and Makar has basically sent letters saying, why should we pay this? You should ask for this from the government. This is not what was intended, what our Safe Restart funds were intended to be used for. I guess we have an opportunity to respond likewise, or we can simply say, oh, well, let's just pay it. My assessment of the thing, and I'll stop talking after this, but my assessment of it is that it was badly handled by the folks involved. who should have, when they realized this was happening, got in touch with people and communicated what was going on. And they should have asked the municipalities, is this okay? Now, apparently they did go to the committee, but the committee was made clear to us all by the mayor of Parry Sound, has no status. They are just advisory, and we don't have our own representative. We share a representative with 2 other municipalities, and that representative, I think, wasn't on the ball at the time, to make matters worse. So the advisory committee said, "Yeah, I guess so, whatever," and so they just Parry Sound just issued these invoices to us, and so I question it, as I say, is do we want to push back like Magneto and McCarr and say, hey, wait a minute, you should be trying to get this from the government through other funding sources first before you come talk to us, or do we want to just instruct staff to pay it? Open for discussion.
Yeah, Councillor Gordon Matthews here. I guess if other municipalities are pushing back and questioning it, we'd kind of be silly just to pay it out, even though I'm sure we can use that, take it out of that $232,000 that we got. But generally speaking, I imagine if we don't pay for it now, it'll be included in their bill for next year. So if they can't get it any other way.
Okay, any other comments?
Yeah, Councillor Lamb, I think at this point we should push back. I also think we're going to probably end up paying it in the end, whether it's a month from now or next year, as has been said. So, but I do think we should at least get more detail from them as to, it's okay just to send a letter saying, hey, we overspent by $450,000, and it was, it's kind of for overtime and PPE events and things like that, and pay it. And I think it's, as you say, Mr. Mayor, kind of a bit of an affront, right? I'm not also sure that I agree with all the weighted assessments here. It's really funny when Parry Sound runs it, and they have 6,500 people, and because their assessment's so low, they pay $27,000, right? And if you look at some of the other communities, they're really weighted just because the formula is only on assessment and not population based. And I'm sure EMS responses and things like that would be more population related than assessment, right? You're either getting a call or you're not. So I suspect I'd love to see what the call records are for all these, whether they represent, in our case, 4.3% or whatever. But anyway, the formula I don't necessarily agree with, and I think we should try to change it to a fair formula, but that's another day. But I think we should support these motions and, ask them to, I don't know what we do, just support the other motions or what. But anyway.
Mr. Mayor,
okay, thank you.
Councilman McEwen, I agree with Councilor Lamb. I think we should support the other motions and push back at this time.
All right. Any other comments?
Mr. Mayor, can I say this?
Yeah.
I'd be in support of pushing back too. I mean, if we have the opportunity to push back, then sure, let's push back. And like everyone said, we might have to end up paying for it anyways, but given the opportunity, we might as well as push back.
So how do you want to word this? That the council of the municipality of Whitestone does hereby question the invoice or question the supplementary EMS levy for reasons similar to the other municipalities, Magneto and McCarr, something like that. Is that?
Sure.
Does hereby, so I'll write this out, does hereby question the supplementary EMS levy for reasons similar to those of municipalities of Magnetawan and McCarr. And that way it's clear that we are supporting, we are sort of following their lead as far as supporting the questions that they've raised. So that's the motion I have. Would someone like to move that and second that, please?
I'll move it, Councillor Lamb.
Thank you. Seconded by?
I'll second, Councillor Woods.
Councillor Woods. Any further discussion? Okay. Is there any objection to the motion? Hearing none, I will declare it carried. Okay, next item. You have in your agenda package a sample draft best practices guided municipal information card. And I guess the question is, what do we want to do with that? Any comments on it, or and if you like it, when do you think we should issue it?
Councillor Lamb, I like what we see. I take it would be plasticized and something people could put on their refrigerator or wherever in their home. The only comment that I would have is I think the councillors' telephone numbers should be on here. So that if people have an issue or a problem, they're just not, there's not just an email address. And I think that when it comes to the municipal staff contacts, they should perhaps say an extension so that people know. Because when you call in, I don't know exactly. I guess you could probably go to a name. But anyway, I think we should identify that on the front page, and the other side I'm okay with. I don't know whether Mr. Hickey is still with us or not. I know he was working with the office on this, and
I'm still here, Mayor Lamb, Councillor Lamb.
Yeah, I don't know whether Mr. Mayor, we could invite him in if he had any comments, because I know he worked on the back page. I thought he may have some thoughts on this. So.
Sure, we can absolutely go. Doug, if you have any comments you want to make, go ahead, please.
Okay, maybe I can just summarize what's been taken out and what's been added, and I think the staff have done a good job. They've added additional information, which has really added about 25 to 30% more information. So they've added things like the nurses station information, post office numbers, OPP, MTO. They've also mentioned that the clear bags are coming in January 1st. And so they've got more information on there, which is good. As far as the best practices, there's only so much space. They've taken 2 off, which I think they did a good job. They were minor, but they added 2 new ones. The ones they took off was respect private property and don't let your pet roam. So they took that one off. Please don't use soap or shampoo in the lake. They took that one off. in their place, and I think this makes sense, they added no winter parking on the roads, and then a caution for people to share the road with pedestrians. So I think they've done a good job. All the other best practices they left as is. It looks good to me, I think.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, Councilor McEwen?
Yes?
One item I wondered if it was omitted for a reason, and that is like an emergency number for after-hour issues, thinking of road closure, culvert could be washed out on a road. For instance, we had a no water call on an after-hour scenario at the community center. I don't know, maybe it's not an easy thing to do, but there is no real after-hour call service numbers on here except for the fire department. And I don't think the fire department want to be called out for facilities and road-related issues. Just a thought.
Okay, response from our staff to the whole question, I guess, of phone numbers and the emergency number.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's actually not a bad idea. A lot of municipalities utilize an after-hour service. So as soon as the office is closed until it reopens again, whether it's the next day or on a Monday, the phones get kicked into an after-hour service, and someone could call the office, and the after-hour service answers, and they hear what the issue is. Most likely it's public works related, whether it's landfill, roads, or facilities, and then depending on who's on call, in our case, whether it's our new manager or our lead hand, those people get called. But at least there's a phone number to call, or sometimes it might be a bylaw issue. So I don't know what the cost would be to engage in after-hour service, but it's probably worth looking into, and I wouldn't imagine it costs very much. There might be a monthly fee plus per phone call cost, and then there truly is someone at the end of the line if something happens, and we aren't searching around for a staff member that they may or may not know, or a counselor, and they can go right to the after-hours call service and they get connected to the proper person. They wouldn't normally give out cell phone numbers, but they would call, but with the roads operation, they would call the manager, and he would call that person back and deal with the issue. So it's a good point. I'm sure we can find it. Once I do get a little bit more information, I'm sure we can find a place on here. We did squeeze an awful lot of information in. I think it looks good in terms of spacing, but there's always room for a little bit more.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, one other item there, and that is the emergency number for Hydro One. It could be significant at some events from a safety point of view and otherwise. And whether that could be part of the emergency call-in situation, I could leave that for thought.
That's, if I may, Mr. Mayor, that's a very good point. We had this discussion maybe a year ago at council, and we did get an emergency Hydro One number, and I entirely agree. We'll find a space for that.
Okay. Otherwise, it looks great.
I can't tell because I'm looking at a PDF. I can't tell exactly what the size of this document is, but it could be made larger. No, I mean, is there something magic about this? It looks like a kind of a long, thin card. I mean, is there a reason why you can make it an inch wider and spread things out a little bit?
We modeled it after the size of the previous one, and it wasn't laminated, but it was a hard card stock that was used, so didn't bend easily. But that's a good point. I'll have to see if there. I don't know if it would be a custom size if it made it bigger, or if in fact this was a custom size. But you're right. If we could add another half inch to the length, we would get just a little bit more information on there.
Okay, well,
Mr. Mayor,
Good point.
Mr. Mayor, just a thanks to Mr. Hickey for bringing this forward and helping with it.
You're welcome, folks. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Madam Clerk, you didn't say anything about the telephone numbers. Are you okay with that and the extensions being on there?
Oh, yeah, definitely with the council's phone numbers. Yes, that's a good point. I'm just trying to think how we would. I think if we're going to say municipal staff contacts, probably underneath that, if we're going to make a little bit more room, we would want to repeat the office number, and that way the extension number has a little bit more context. But let me think about it. I don't disagree. Normally those extensions don't really mean anything because our staff answer the phone 90% of the time, and the call just gets transferred. It's more after hours if someone listens into the phone directory and they want to leave a message after hours. So yep, we'll see what we can do to fit that in and make it look like it works for people and they understand what we're trying to say.
Thank you.
So do you want to simply refer this back to staff to make the suggestions and bring it forward to implement what we've discussed and bring it back for another look?
Mr. Mayor, I think it's pretty straightforward if we give them approval based on changes as suggested.
So you don't want to see it again, is what you're saying?
Sure. Well, no, I think we could approve it based on the changes to be made, I think.
Okay, and when would you want to issue it? That's the other issue if we're going to have a motion here.
I think although it's a time down the road, I think it should be issued in the spring, because if you issue it now or in the winter, particularly if there's a lot of people that aren't here and they're sitting at their home in Welland or something, and they're not coming up till next May, they're likely not going to use it, right? So if you hit them at the time they're coming to the cottage, we'll hit a lot more people. So I don't think there's any great urgency to put it out this fall, but I guess we could. It's just I think they'll end up on refrigerators all over the place or in the garbage. So anyway.
So how about this? That the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone does hereby approve the card with the modifications discussed to be issued in the new year.
Yeah, that's good.
And that way you could see it again without, whether you want to or not, I guess. Would somebody like to move that? Go ahead.
My apologies for interrupting. I wanted everyone to make note of the landfill hours.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it's important. Council may recall that we adjusted our landfill hours through the COVID time frame. They were, instead of in the summer 9 to 6, we moved 9 to 5, and that's somewhat aligned with some reduced hours that we started out with. So we were 9 to 5 and 10 to 6 instead of 9 to 6 and 10 to 7. And we made sure our staff still had the hours of work, but they came in an hour early each day, and they did all the things that needed to be done when there's no customers, like clean up the gate and rake and, tidy up the cardboard, all those things that need to be done. We didn't get any complaints, and it really was advantageous for our staff that they were able to concentrate on, sometimes it was even just painting a shed. So I left those hours in, just really as a point of discussion, and the intent is, if council agrees, that we would put them into the new bylaw. But if this isn't going out to the spring, we can certainly revisit those hours one more time. But I know that we didn't get any complaints at the office, and it was one of the few silver linings of COVID when we changed the hours. It really worked well for our staff to be able to concentrate on some activities other than the landfill before the customers got there. So just bringing that to your attention.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other comments? Would someone like to move the motion, please? To approve the card with modifications discussed and to be issued in the new year?
I'll move, Councilor McEwen.
Councilor McEwen, yes, thank you. Seconded by?
I'll second Councilor Woods.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Any objection to?
Well, I just, as I
Go ahead.
About it and I read it, it says, clear bags as of January 1st and winter parking. So maybe there is some sense in getting it out. Do we have any more newsletters this year?
We are preparing a November newsletter.
Yeah.
Well, if you want to get that word out on those two items, we have to practically put it out in November, don't we?
That's a good point.
We wouldn't send it with. Am I right in saying we wouldn't send it with the newsletter, or would we?
Well, the intention would be, it would make sense for the mailing cost.
But then you'd have to have a bigger envelope, wouldn't you?
I don't.
You're not sending a tax bill, right?
No, I believe this card would fit in a normal envelope. I'll have to do a double check.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well. Okay. So are we going to say to be issued with the November newsletter then?
Sounds
I think
good.
you have to.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, I just compared it to an envelope I have here, and in terms of length, we could probably get another half, 3/4 of an inch, and still have it nicely fit in the envelope. You wouldn't want to make it any wider. A little wanted to, but
no.
I think what happened was the last time the card came with the newsletter in the same envelope.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Okay, so to be issued with the November newsletter, is that what we're going to change it to?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. With do you think that's logistically possible, CIO?
Let's see, it's in October. Yeah, I believe it is, Mr. Mayor. Yeah.
Okay. Motion is amended, as assuming the mover and seconder are agreeable.
So move again. Thank you.
All right. Any further discussion?
I think that in the newsletter itself, we should put a little tiny blurb mentioning the card and how, please take it to your place so you have it. So hopefully they'll read that and do it. So. That doesn't change the motions. So.
No. Okay. All right. Any opposition to the motion? Okay. Hearing none, I would say it's carried.
Leaving the meeting.
Teresa Wetzlar.
So, item 13.3 says it's an update from me about
Leaving the meeting.
Lake Dam. Doug Hickey. And I'm going to try and make this quick because we're getting on time-wise. I participated, I guess, last Wednesday evening in the virtual annual general meeting of the Magnetawan Pioneers Association, which is the cottagers association on Bolger Lake in Cashagaba. And essentially, they had invited me to comment on a couple of things. And the first one was the Cashagaba Lake Dam. which you will recall we have a little reserve account in our budget. It says Cache Dam, and every year we put a few more bucks into it. But anyway, the background, which I think I've shared with you before, is that about a year ago now, the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry approached us and said, it's time for us to do a review of the status of that dam, see whether it needs to be repaired or replaced or whatever, and if we were to repair it or replace it, would the municipality be willing to take over ownership of it in the same way that we did with the Washkish Dam? And our response was, well, that depends, right? So, but we'll see. So they went ahead and commissioned an environmental assessment, and they hired a consulting engineering firm that does these services to come in and inspect the dam and to come up with options for repairing it. And I have gone, they committed to keep the municipality in the loop, of course, in this project, and so I traveled out with them to the site once last fall, and when the consultants were there to inspect it, not to inspect the dam, but to bid on the project, so they could see what we were getting into. And then subsequently, I've attended some meetings to get status reports from them. But they have now basically finished their work. They completed the environmental assessment, and they provided a couple of options for rebuilding the dam to the ministry. And the ministry is still reviewing them, but they indicated to me that they are getting ready to issue, like part of the environmental assessment process is that you present the findings of the assessment to the public for comment and provide them with an opportunity. So they're getting ready to do that, to release these documents to the public and say, here's what we're proposing to do, and you have an opportunity to comment. And I don't know exactly how they're going to do that given COVID-19, but normally what they would do is they would say, we're going to have an open house in your community center, and people can come, and the consultants will be there, and the M&R people will be there, and you can talk to us about what you think and look at the plans and all that. But anyway, that is just a status update. When those documents are available, I don't have the final ones. I have some drafts. I have drafts of probably most of them, but I don't know what their estimated cost to replace it was. I don't think they're suggesting that we spend any money. I mean, as far as replacing it is concerned, I think if they decided to replace it, they would do that at their own expense, at provincial expense. But they did indicate that they will be shortly asking us for a renewed statement of interest in acquiring it in other words, if they do what they're proposing to do, and thereby give it a 50-year lifespan or something, would we then be prepared to take on responsibility for it? So that's just an update for you. I expect we will have something before the fall is out that we can share with council, and perhaps we'll get do our own assessment of what our risks are associated with this. The dam is not in danger of collapsing or anything. It's not leaking substantially, but this is probably, the only opportunity that the residents who are back there would have to get to see it rebuilt at public expense in the foreseeable future. And I guess one option that they have is to say, well, we won't do anything. We'll just leave it the way it is and see what happens to it. The second matter of discussion, which we really do need to spend some time on this, but I think it's premature to do it now, is the things that are going on back at Black Lake and Round Lake. The folks who run their large vehicles back there are completely out of control. They are making trails all over Crown land and trashing the wilderness and leaving garbage and starting fires and doing a whole lot of other things. I have indicated to the Ministry of Natural Resources and the OPP that we need to sit down and talk about a solution, which may be simply to have the government close it to vehicles, close the area to vehicles, other than the people who are landowners. Of course, they'd have to figure out how to enforce that, but I think it's only a matter of time. We had a fatality already this summer back there, I think you know, and just with people driving carelessly on that trail that is not really intended for you to go very fast on, and it's a matter of time before someone starts a really serious forest fire back there. There are constant fires all the time. The people not following the regulations, and of course it's really it's Crown land, and so in a sense it is not it's in our municipality, but it's not our 100% our problem. But I kind of feel that we need to take some initiative to try to get the parties together who do have the power to deal with it, which is mostly the Ministry of Natural Resources, and have them do something that will prevent it from becoming a hazard to us. And you will see that there's we are continuing to get letters that are copied to the MNRF and copied to MPP Norm Miller, and is saying, the situation's getting intolerable. What are you guys going to do about it? So I guess from my part, I said, well, I don't mind trying to convene the parties involved and see if we can come up with some solutions. And so this is really just an information item, and it's maybe an explanation of some of the correspondence that you will see when we get to correspondence in a second. So unless you have questions or comments,
Mr. Mayor?
Councillor Woods was back there on the weekend, so he might have some comments. I don't know, Councillor Woods, if you want to just weigh in a bit for a second, that would perhaps be good.
I could definitely talk about some of the happenings that have been going on back there. I took a trip out there after our last council meeting, the weekend following it. I drove out there with my boys and my dad, and the state of the road, well, if you want to call it a road, to actually get into Black Lake. I used to go back there about 8-10 years ago, and I would say that it is easily 100 times worse just to travel that road than it was 8 to 10 years ago. I pulled over and stopped and put out a couple of fires that were left there. They're still smoldering. I got some water bottles out of my truck and emptied them. But by the time I actually got to where it opens up into Black Lake, the road's so rough that my son puked all over my truck. So, I mean, it's definitely not an easy go for anyone to get back there. For our emergency services to get back there to actually help somebody that was injured, it is quite the tour to get out there and then get someone back that's injured in some sort of comfort without causing even further injury would be a chore for sure. My general sense of talking to people out there was basically complete disregard for the safety of everyone out there and the natural environment. I mean, I picked up car parts that were strewn around everywhere, water bottles and old oil containers that were laying all over the place. There's toilet paper all over the place, makeshift shanties, 5-gallon pails that people have, you know, they strapped pool noodles to the top to make it comfortable for them to sit down to go to the bathroom, and this is all strewn around the beach area. There's the one section when you're coming in the road that's posted with a sign. I'm assuming it was M&R that put the sign there. It says environmentally protected area. And there's truck tracks and four-wheeler tracks right through this area. And the sign to me, there was a picture of a turtle. It must be a nesting ground for a turtle or some other amphibians or whatever animals we have up in that area. It's a beautiful spot, Black Lake. There was some people out there, you could tell they were just day trippers. I saw the one young couple there. They just had a sunshade on the beach and they were having a good time. And they were just there for a few hours and then they were coming back out. But the activity with all the four-wheelers and the 4x4s that are lifted up, the general idea that I got from the people that I had walked around and talked to was, well, it's Crown land. I can do whatever I want. These people are cutting trails all through Crown land. I actually stopped and talked to a guy on Ald's Road just near our dump yesterday in a Jeep. I thought he had broke down. I pulled over to offer my help, and he was just filling his tires up because I guess he runs the pressure in his tires very low when he comes through the trails. And I said, well, where are you coming from? He said, oh, well, we start in Black Lake. And we've been cutting new trails and mapping new trails all the way around, and they came out at Ald's Road. Now, a lot of that's Crown, but there is a lot of private property back there. And I explained to this guy, you know, you're going through a lot of private property, and the people that own these properties, they really don't appreciate the destruction that you guys are causing. And this person assured me that, oh, no, we're part of a federation, and we're allowed to go through Crown land and cut these trails. And to me, all I see is irresponsible behavior. And when I had heard about how bad it was out there, I automatically assumed I'll go out there would be a bunch of younger people, you know, young guys. That's not what I found. We're talking people 40s, 50s, 60s, driving around drunk. I had my boys out of the truck, especially after my one puked. I got them all changed. And after about 5 minutes, I asked my dad, put him back in the truck because I don't trust these people the way they're driving and the way they're acting. So one group of people had shelters set up. They had a full outdoor kitchen where they're washing dishes, they're washing their hands, whatever. And all this gray water is leaking out, and it's directed right at the beach. They're pretty much sitting on the beach. All this stuff's going back into the lake. The amount of toilet paper that I seen all over the beach was disgusting. It's unsanitary. It's unsafe. And I mean, I know we don't directly have the power to do anything, but I think we owe it to everybody in the community and all of our taxpayers out on Bolger and the other lakes out there. We need to start a conversation with everybody to try and get this cleaned up because it's only going to get worse. And it's unfortunate because it is a very beautiful area.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Woods. Any other comments or questions about this?
Yeah, Councillor Lamb. I think well said, Brian. And I've heard more and more of this. Unfortunately, I've not gone back into that area in my time on council. I'm a little embarrassed to say that, but I know an awful lot about the issues over the years, and we've had them. Going back my 13 years or so on council, that whole area kept coming up, and at one point, and I was talking to the fire chief today, went into the office and got my papers and stuff, and I was talking to the fire chief, and he reminded me, and we did, 4 or 5 years ago, maybe longer than that, we got M&R to say you cannot camp back there. You cannot. They sort of put a rule in for a year or two, and everything kind of got cleaned up. There was, I think he said, an ATV group that went in and cleaned a lot of the old stuff up, and it significantly improved. And I think ultimately that's the only thing that can be done because of the isolation of the place, right? We don't have the resources. The OPP don't have the resources to be there, except on occasion or as required. But the MNR are the people that can do something about this. They can put restrictions on it or say you cannot have camps